Okay, we're on. Thanks for letting me know. All right. Shalom, everyone. Shalom. All right, so tempting when I'm with the mic here to go Shabbat Shalom, but it's Tuesday. But Shalom, that's right. Torah Study, Shalom. All right, so welcome, everyone, to the MTOI Tuesday Night Torah Study, and welcome to all of you on the live stream. We've got Manny over there manning the desk. I always like saying it that way. It's kind of funny. All right, so he's got that covered. And for those of you that are here, well, I'm glad that you're here. It's just a joy when we can all come together, especially to study His Word. Okay, so what we're going to do, especially for those of you that are new and on the live stream, first of all, a reminder, and I'll probably say this again just in case it gets just kind of, a lot of people new will be jumping on. This is a congregational Torah study. This is not like an open forum, open for everybody to put their agendas forward or, those kind of things. I mean, this is an MTOI Beth Shalom sponsored event. You are all welcome to be here as guests, and we would ask that you would behave as you would a guest if you were here in person. Hopefully that would be appropriate. I don't know, some of you may behave badly when you're guests in person. Now, what do I know? But most people, do have a certain amount of discipline and a situational awareness to behave a certain way when they're physically at something. And so sometimes the internet makes people more likely to miss the fact that they're actually part of something that's on an ongoing event, okay? There will be opportunities for discussion as long as we can do it respectfully. What we're going to do today is we're going to read the Torah portion. It's Torah portion Ki Teitzei, and so we'll get to that in a minute. As is our habit, we're going to open up with anybody needing any prayer. Also, if anybody has any praises that we need to share, if you're online, Manny will kind of note that down. Also, for those of you that are online, please respect the authority that Manny has on the live stream. And if Kurt Meyer's in there as well, then please respect him as the shamash of the group. Okay, as they just, if they ask you to, cease and desist of something, please cease and desist. Or they do have the authority then to put people in timeout, which is a sort of thing we do on YouTube, or actually boot you out of the room. So, we want this to be a blessing, not a debate, not a stress, not a anything that can get ugly. We want this to be a blessing. And so if everybody comes here with the right approach, the right attitude, it should be. Okay? Now, because I already know what's in the Torah portion, I already know we already have a few things that could create a little bit of heated debate, so that's good. And so we'll have some fun with those when we get there. All right? Now, that being said, okay, Steve Waffle's got the mic. Manny's got the live stream. If you've got a prayer, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll go ahead. Let's keep that to urgent things. Okay, Michael's got his hand up over here.
We'd like to lift up in prayer Christine Glover,
yeah, upstairs.
And also Heidi. She had an issue today.
Okay, we had a few health issues today, so just please keep those two people, Christine and Heidi, in prayer. And let's pray that we don't have any more health issues today, because 2 was enough. It was actually more than enough. So, but we're glad that they're both doing better. And so we appreciate that. Okay, who's next? Okay, Lynn.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I just wanted to lift Lula and Farrell up in our prayers.
Okay, we can do that.
We have some health concerns that are been problematic and ongoing. So.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Anybody else? All right, go ahead and bring it back to Manny.
Okay, Angelique Ewing, prayer request, my mom's surgery to happen tomorrow, speedy recovery, and for a very important financial transaction to go through. Continued protection for my trip here in West Virginia and wisdom. We have Janet, unspoken. Crystal, prayer for my dermatologist biopsy for good results. Bonnie prays that Heavenly Father sheltered us from Hurricane Dorian. Only tree limbs down in yard. Power was back on the next day. Earl Lee, prayer for sales that are really, really slow at this moment. Kaylin Lee, please pray for my patience not trying to get ahead of Abba and his plans as we go through all these transitions in our lives. Lisa, I have a couple of unspoken prayer requests. Claire, praise report for getting my work project completed and that Abba is blessing me with regular freelance work. Walk softly, prayers for financial provision as we got a high quote for a house restoration today. Jacob, please pray for healing a young man who got caught under a tractor tire. It crushed his pelvic area. Prayer request, had a series of tests done on my heart today. This is from Tony. Prayers that the results are not too bad, and a few unspokens. Let's see. Dante, Donovan's marriage coming this Sunday, travel mercies. Andy, prayers for my child's school education. We can teach our children about wizards, but not God. Year 7 for high school. Prayer request from Sylvia for quick recovery for our friend Frank, who underwent prostate cancer surgery yesterday. Rick Berry, prayer request for Betty with her migraines and for Kayla, who has been dealing with some kind of bug. Shirley, praise report, my son's back pain is gone. Unspoken prayers for me and my family. Denise, unspoken prayers. And JS, for Rabbi who helps in my marriage, seems to be helping, so thank you.
Amen. Appreciate that. I'm glad I was able to help.
We have a few unspoken. I'm caught up, and there's a big delay, so that's all I have for now.
Amen. Okay, so just let's go back real quickly to you are primarily responsible for all aspects of your life. So actually, praise on you for giving me the thanks, but really you did the work. Okay, I gave the counsel, but I didn't do anything. You had to actually accept the counsel and put it into place. So praises to you for putting it in action. Okay, and that's where the praise is. I can give all the counsel in the world, doesn't matter if the person doesn't apply it. Okay? All right, so that's why when we listen to the teachings, they're supposed to do 4 things. Really, it's of no use till you get to step 2. Understanding it is great, but until you're doing it, it's of no use. Okay, so I do appreciate that the counsel was helpful, but I'm appreciating that you did it, and it's working. Amen. Go ahead.
I got a couple more coming in.
Okay.
Norfleet, please pray for my mom. She has no physical strength right now. Randall, prayer for my girlfriend Stephanie to let Abba take the reins for the things she's having to deal with. Deidre, prayer needed. Eric was fired from his job yesterday. He has a new job lined up to start the 22nd and orientation tomorrow. Please pray that he would be allowed to start sooner. Crystal, forgot to give a praise report. Good report for Joe's MRI report yesterday. Rick Berry prays our home and PA listed and multiple showings are scheduled. Norfleet again, please pray for my 3-year-old granddaughter and her heart condition. Randall prays I'm getting to come to MTOI Sukkot. And that's about it.
Okay, amen. Okay, a couple of things real quick that I want to add here. First of all, somebody did mention something about wizards being taught but not God. Okay, just to be clear, my position is that God has 0 place in public school, because otherwise you'd have to address everybody's religion. Okay, if you want to homeschool, yes, he has every place to be in that. And he's very well-centered in the MTOI Academy. But you should not want him taught in public schools, because then you'd have to address everybody's religion. The only reason you want him taught is because you want your religion taught. Okay? And quite frankly, those of us in this belief system don't necessarily want the Christianity taught to our children in public school. And it's the Christians who are pushing the agenda. Okay? Just to be clear. All right? And if your child needs school to pray, you're doing something wrong at home. I'm just saying that again. If you need prayer to be in school, then you're missing something at home. Okay? I want my child to learn math, English, science, history, art in school. I can teach my child, as is my duty, the God-related stuff. All right? So that's just my position, because I know it's a hot spot for, especially if you're coming out of a Christian background. Okay? But that's only because of where you're coming from. Context has a lot to do with your cultural background or your religious background or your, part of the world where you grew up or whatever it is, your history, your past, your whatever. And so let's be careful with that. I'm very glad to just have the secular stuff taught in the secular place called school, if you're in a secular school, and keep all that other stuff out of it, because the government can't seem to do most things right. Do you really want them teaching religion at any level? Okay? They have enough trouble with reading, writing, and arithmetic, as they say, okay? The 3 R's. And they're not even really R's, okay? Well, hey, as the song goes, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay, so, of course, 2 out of 3 have, yeah, well, I'm saying 2 out of 3 have W's, but, whatever you can put it. Okay, now, all right, okay, or a W and an A, arithmetic, and then writing, never mind, okay? Okay, that being said, I want to add, see, I failed in math too. Okay, that being said, I want to add a couple other things here. We still are struggling to find a mikveh site for Sukkot. Okay, the property that we're going to be at this time doesn't have a place. It's the first time we've been to a property that doesn't actually have a place we can use, so we're still looking and we haven't found one. So there may or may not be one at Sukkot. So if you're coming to Sukkot, don't kill the messenger. We're doing our best. If we can't do it, we can't do it. Okay? And that's where you have to accept in life there is what it is. Okay, we talk about the color code stuff. If you are red or want to embrace any bit of red, you have to be able to say this phrase, it is what it is. Okay? And accept that as okay. It is what it is. And so we're doing everything we can, but it's going to be what it's going to be, all right? Okay, that being said, also I am working on a teaching that may be used during the up to the challenge aspects of Sukkot. It's a teaching, not sure what I'm going to call it, but it's at the moment I'm calling it something to do with radical control. Okay, the idea of understanding, are you in control, being controlled, or out of control? Okay, with the ultimate goal being that you really cannot, we talk about submission a lot, but you know what? It's my fault, I apologize. We should not be talking about submission. That's step 2. You can't do submission till you get into control. If you're being controlled or out of control, you have no ability to submit. And a lot of you think you're in control, but you're not. Okay, so pray about that. I think that's going to be a really powerful teaching, a nice class that we're going to do. So while submission is very important scripturally, the reason most people struggle is because they haven't gotten step 1 done. And in my prayer and in my putting this together, being open to the Father, of course, these things tend to happen after midnight when I'm wanting to go to sleep. I was on my computer last night typing out the beginnings of this class, okay? And it had to deal with the idea of control, okay? So, after all, if you're doing the fruit of the Ruach, what is the last one? Self-control. Yow. And by the way, that should really be the first one because you can't do the other ones without it, okay? Because if you're not in control, if you don't have self-control, it's going to mess with your love, joy, peace, patience, etc. All right, so just keep that in prayer. I think it's going to be a very powerful class, and we'll see. It may even be 2 classes. I do have 2 slots in the schedule. I know some of you still want the schedule. I was hesitating to put it up until I had the mikveh thing worked out. But we should be posting it. We're also launching our new website here this week, it looks like. So it should be on the new website when we do get the schedule. So I have the schedule ready in PDF form to put on the site. I did that today. So it is ready to go. Okay, so there you go. So please also keep in prayer that the launch of the new website will go well as well. All right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get the studies. Now, I want to have somebody go ahead and open the study. One of the men raise your hand. All right, give it to Dale. He's got his hand up. Actually, Josh got his hand up sort of half up, so we'll give him the phone. Okay. Josh, open us up in prayer and also pray for the people who've asked for prayer.
Our Father, our King, we come before you. I want to lift up the praises and prayers said today. You know what they need. Pray we have a good study tonight. Open our eyes and ears to the word. We pray in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. By the way, for all those of you that wonder about prayer, prayer doesn't need to be a mini sermon. It can be just like that, straight to the point. Okay? Because I know some people think that, I don't want to pray, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say a whole lot. Just get right to the point. That was great. Good job, Josh. Okay. Now, A couple of quick announcements before we start, just so I'll get some people that may be in now that may be not able to stay all the way through. Okay, so first of all, we started a new challenge. Some of you are not up to the challenge and haven't started yet, but we are up to a new challenge, and it is day 3. We started Sunday, and then Monday. Today is now Tuesday. All right? And since we're doing these things in the morning, so we're not saying that we're now starting into day 4. Tomorrow you will do the 4th section, the 4th stanza of Psalm 119. All right? So you'll be needing to get yourself at least up to the first 24 verses, going to 32 tomorrow. Okay? So we have the first 24 verses 25 to 32 are tomorrow. All right? So today's day 3 of the reading. So we'll be finishing the day before trumpets. All right? So the Psalm 119 challenge. All right, coming up on the schedule here, just to make sure we've covered it, this week, again, is our men's and ladies' classes, or, so we have the ladies and men getting together. Excellent. You're applauding, but I still have to write something for the class. Then, of course, we have our leadership meetings on this coming Sunday. So for the leaders who are listening, that is on Sunday the 15th. And then Rosh Hashanah is coming up on the 30th. And then, let's see, we are going to have Torah Study on October 1st, which is the next day. And let's see, and then Yom Kippur, October the 9th. And the night before, which is a Tuesday night, we'll try to see if we can plan to do something special here. But because we may be equipment challenged, I'm not sure how that'll work out. We'll figure that out before and make sure we announce that. And then, of course, Sukkot, which we have well over 300 people coming now. Yeah. Okay. Very exciting. It's gonna play out, I think, in a powerful way. We are going to definitely need a lot of help with the volunteers showing up, especially with the children's program. All right, so that's from October the 13th. We'll be arriving. The first Holy Day is on October 14th, and then the last Holy Day is on October 21st. All right. Now, keep also in prayer that we've just submitted for the next 4 years the dates for this property so they can start blocking things out, so we may lock in some time. They already sent us the contract to review for Passover, okay, for Passover 2020, so we have that already working as well. All right? And we will also have on the site the dates for you to get off of work for next year. Okay, so I gave those dates to David Hayes to have ready for people who need their letters drafted, because we also help people with accommodation letters. We're looking at having on our website a form letter where all you need to do is fill in your information, and then it will help spit out a letter with the dates and all those things for your HR department. Okay? So, all right? If your HR department needs specific wording of anything, then just let us know. I would recommend you pre-write the letter, send it to us, and then we'll just fill in our little tweaks that we need to, and we'll have it signed and send it back, okay? All right. So that's being worked on. So I think that's going to cover it for the announcements. All right, so tonight's Torah portion brought to you by, no, I'm kidding. By Yahweh, there you go. Tonight's Torah portion is Ki Teitzei. What does that mean, Ki Teitzei? When you go out, which will be in about another 2.5 hours, and we'll be going out. Okay. You guys don't understand how crazy this group is. We get together like on Shabbat at like 11:30, 12 o'clock, go all the way. Services don't even start till 1. Services end at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then we eat, and then we hang out for another 3 hours, and then we go out and eat. And then, I'm not kidding. And then for those of you that are really hardcore, I won't name anybody, pointing to the back of the room, we stand out in the parking lot until 2:30 in the morning after the second eating. Oh, I'm sorry, 3? Okay, we made it to 3 last Saturday. So why we didn't just stay inside doing that, I don't know, but we did it out in the parking lot. Okay, because after all, the place was open. It was a diner. So anyway, so on Tuesday nights, a lot of us do the same thing. So if you were here, you could do this, and then you could go hang out with us and go eat. Okay, because we do that most weeks. All right, let's see. Because as David has always said to me, Mr. Hayes, he said, when 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there's usually a buffet. Okay, so, Okay, although this time of night it's usually a diner or a cafe, not a buffet. Okay. All right, so Ki Teitzei is numbers. Deuteronomy 21:10 to 25:19. Okay, so we're getting really close to the wrapping up the book of Deuteronomy. We're starting to really crank it out here. So 21:10 to 25:19. Okay, which is the end of chapter 25. And so we're going to cover that today. I got 11 readers, so let's fill in some seats. Okay, I got 11 spots. So we've got 6 chairs. We'll fill them up like 1.5 times here. Okay, Rabbi Tom, you reading today? Okay, so we'll get you mixed in here. We'll get you first again today just to kind of get you out of the way since you're up here already. So we'll start with you. Okay, so the way this works is that we do have a blessing, a traditional blessing that we're going to read over each reader. I'll tell you what verses you're going to read, and then you know where you start and where you stop. We'll go through the 11 sections. Each section's about 10 verses or so. And if you're online or here, you ought to have one of these, like a pen or something, and something to write on, so that you can make note of anything that we read, that you get inspired to either ask a question about it or you have a comment about it or something, so that you can mark that down so you can keep track. All right, because we are going to go through this, and there is quite a bit to cover here in these couple of chapters. So it's about 4 chapters, just about. So it's about half of one and all of the next 3. So, or the next 4, 23, 24, yeah, okay. So anyway, see, my math has not been good today. Hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to bring Rabbi Tom up. We'll go ahead and read the blessing. He will start us in chapter 21. That's good. He just wanted to remind me that we're announcing the challenge. So we just caught that right before you got here. Yep. So, and since we're doing it in the mornings, I said it was the 3rd day, and tomorrow will be the 4th day when we get up. And so that'll be day 4. Okay. So here we go. Let me put this out of the way here. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come out to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rabbi Tom is going to take us from verse 10, okay, to the end of chapter 21. So it's verse 10 to the end of chapter 21.
When you go out to fight against your enemies, and Yahweh your Elohim shall give them into your hand, and you shall take them captive, and shall see among the captives a woman of fair form, and shall delight in her, and take her for your wife. Then you shall bring her home to your house, and she shall shave her head and trim her nails, and put aside the mantle of her captivity, and shall dwell in your house, and mourn her father and her mother a month of days. And after that you shall go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. And it shall be, if you are not pleased with her, then you shall let her go at her desire. But you do not sell her at all for silver. Do not treat her harshly, since you have humbled her. When a man has 2 wives, one loved and the other unloved, and they have borne him children, both the loved and the unloved, and the firstborn son is of her who is unloved, then it shall be on the day he makes his sons to inherit his possessions, he is not allowed to treat the son of the beloved wife as the firstborn in the face of the son of the unloved, who is truly the firstborn son. But he is to acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. When a man has a wayward and rebellious son who is not listening to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and who, when they have disciplined him, does not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city, to the gate of his city, and shall say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He is not listening to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death with stones. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. And let all Israel hear and fear. And when a man has committed a sin worthy of death, then he shall be put to death, and you shall hang him on a tree. Let his body not remain overnight on the tree, for you shall certainly bury him the same day. For he who is hanged is accursed of Elohim, so that you do not defile the land which Yahweh, your Elohim, is giving you as an inheritance.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, next up we have Mr. Steve Waffle. Let me get this back open to the right page here. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, Steve's going to take us now to chapter 22 and read verses 1 through 10.
Okay. And when you see your brother's ox or his sheep straying away, you shall not hide yourself from them. Return them to your brother without fail. And if your brother is not near you, or if you do not know him, then you shall bring it to your house, and you shall be with you until your brother seeks it. Then you shall return it to him. And you should, and so you should do with the donkey, and so you do with his garment, and so you do with whatever your brother loses, which he has lost and you have found. You are not allowed to hide it. Hide yourself. When you see your brother's donkey or his ox fall in the way, you shall not hide yourself from them. Help him, raise them without fail. A woman does not wear that which pertains to a man, nor does a man put on woman's garments, for whoever does this is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. When you come upon a bird's nest along the way, in a tree or on the ground, with the young ones or eggs, with the mother sitting on the young or the eggs, do not take the mother with the young. Let the mother go without fail, and take the young for yourself, so that it might be well with you, and that you shall prolong your days. And when you build a new house, then you shall make a parapet for your roof, so that you do not bring blood guilt on your house when one falls from it. Do not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seeds, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, next up we have Dale. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Dale, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, Dale, you're going to take us now from verse 11 to 19.
Do not put on a garment of different kinds of wool and linen together. Make tassels on the four corners of the garments with which you cover yourself. When any man takes a wife and shall go into her and shall hate her, he shall make abusive charges against her and bring an evil name on her and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I did not find her a maiden. Then the father and mother of the young woman shall take and bring out the proof of the girl's maidenhood to the elders of the city at the gate. And the girl's father shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man as a wife, and he hates her. And see, he has made abusive charges against her, saying, I did not find your daughter a maiden, and yet these are the proofs of my daughter's maidenhood. And they shall spread the garment before the elders of the city. And the elders of that city shall take that man and punish him, and fine him 100 pieces of silver, and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought an evil name on a maiden of Israel. And she is to be his wife. He is not allowed to put her away all his days. But if the matter is true that the girl was not found a maiden, then they shall bring out the girl to the door of the father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done wickedness in Israel to whore in her father's house. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
You know what? Just go ahead and finish the chapter. Or skip past me.
That works. When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. Thus you shall purge the evil from Israel. When a girl who is a maiden is engaged to a husband, and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and shall stone them to death with stones. The girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he has humbled his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. But if a man finds the girl who is engaged in the field, and the man takes hold of her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do no matter to the girl. The girl has no sin worthy of death. For the matter is like a man who rises against his neighbor and murders him, a being, for he found her in the field, and she cried out, the engaged girl, but without anyone to save her. When a man finds a girl who is a maiden who is not engaged, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out, then the man who lay with her shall give to the girl's father 50 pieces of silver, and she is to be his wife, because he humbled her. He is not allowed to put her away all his days. A man does not take his father's wife, nor uncover his father's skirt.
You must be like a firstborn son, because I gave you a double portion. Okay. Of course, not from the loved wife, but from the unloved wife, which I don't have. So, all right. I need to get out of that one. Okay, here we go. All right, Michael. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michael's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, he's going to take us now to chapter 23. Some of these readings are pretty quick and they're short, so let's just kind of pay attention. You're going to just read verses 1 through 8. All right.
He who is wounded by crushing of testicles, or whose penis is cut off, shall not enter into the community of Yahweh. A mamzer shall not enter the community of Yahweh. Even a 10th generation of his shall not enter the community of Yahweh. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of Yahweh. Even a 10th generation of them shall not ever enter the assembly of Yahweh, because they did not meet you with bread and water on the way when you came out of Mitzrayim, and because they hired against you by Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor of Aram Naharim, to curse you. But Yahweh, your Elohim, refused to listen to Balaam, and Yahweh, your Elohim, turned the curse into a blessing for you, because Yahweh, your Elohim, loves you. Do not seek their peace nor their good all of your days forever. Do not loathe an Edomite, for he is your brother. Do not loathe a Mitzrayim, because you were a stranger in his land. The children of the 3rd generation born to them do enter the assembly of Yahweh.
Amen. All right. Josh? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Josh who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, take us from verse 9 to 16.
When the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. When there is any man among you who is not clean because of an emission in the night, then he shall go outside the camp. Let him not come into the midst of the camp. And it shall be at the approach of evening that he bathes with water, and when the sun sets, let him come into the midst of the camp. And you shall have a place outside the camp where you shall go out, and you shall have a sharp implement among your equipment. And when you sit down outside, you shall dig with it, and turn and cover your excrement. For Yahweh your Elohim walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp shall be set apart, so that he does not see unclean matter among you. What verse was supposed to stop at?
16.
You do not hand over to his master to the slave who has escaped from his master to you. Let him dwell with you in your midst, in the place which he chooses within one of your gates, where it is pleasing to him. Do not oppress him.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Come up, May. All right, so I've got 5 more and I got 4 people. So I need 1 more person to come up. Oh, we got 1 more seat. Okay, here comes Christina. Good. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless May, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, May's going to take us now from verse 17 to the end of the chapter. So that's an easy one to kind of know where to stop.
Okay. None of the daughters of Israel is to be a cult prostitute, nor any of the sons of Israel to be a cult prostitute. Do not bring the harlot fee of a whore or the pay of a dog to the house of Yahweh, your Elohim, for any vowed offering for both of these are an abomination to Yahweh, your Elohim. Do not lend an interest to your brother, interest of silver, interest of food, or interest of whatever is lent at interest. To a foreigner you lend at interest, but to your brother you do not lend at interest, so that Yahweh your Elohim might bless you in all that you put your hand to in the land which you are entering to possess. When you make a vow to Yahweh your Elohim, do not delay to pay it, for Yahweh your Elohim is certainly requiring it of you, and it shall be sin in you. But when you abstain from vowing, it is not sin in you. That which has gone from your lips you shall guard and do, for you voluntarily vowed to Yahweh your Elohim what you have promised with your mouth. When you come into your neighbor's vineyard, you shall eat to the satisfaction of your desire, but do not put any in a receptacle of yours. When you come into your neighbor's standing grain, you shall pluck the heads with your hand, but do not use a sickle on your neighbor's standing grain.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, May. Okay, next up, Kathy. All right, Kathy. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kathy, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Kathy's going to take us into chapter 24 and read verses 1 through 11.
When a man takes a wife and shall marry her, then it shall be, if she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found a matter of uncoveredness in her, and he shall write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house. And if she left his house and went and became another man's wife, and the latter husband shall hate her and write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house, or when the latter husband dies who took her to be his wife, then her former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled, for that would be an abomination before Yahweh. And do not bring sin on the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance. When a man has taken a new wife, let him not go out into the army or let any matter be imposed upon him. he shall be exempt 1 year for the sake of his home to rejoice with his wife whom he has taken. No one takes in pledge the lower or the upper millstone, for he would be taking a life in pledge. When a man is found kidnapping any of his brothers of the children of Israel and treats him harshly or sells him, then that kidnapper shall die. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. Take heed in an outbreak of leprosy to diligently guard and do accordingly to all that the priests, the Levites, teach you. As I have commanded them, so you shall guard to do. Remember that what Yahweh your Elohim did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Mitzrayim. When you lend your brother a loan, do not go into his house to get his pledge. Stand outside and let the man to whom you lend bring the pledge out to you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Kathy. Excuse me, Sarah Beth. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 12 to the end of the chapter.
And if a man is poor, do not sleep with his pledge. By all means return the pledge to him at sundown, and he shall sleep in his own garment, and shall bless you, and it shall be righteousness to you before Yahweh your Elohim. Do not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy, of your brothers or of the strangers who is in your land within your gates. Give him his wages on the same day, and do not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor and lifts up his being to it, so that he does not cry out against you to Yahweh, and it shall be sin in you. Fathers are not put to death for their children, and children are not put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin. Do not twist the right ruling of a stranger or the fatherless, nor take the garment of a widow. But you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and that Yahweh your Elohim redeemed you from there. Therefore I am commanding you to do this word. When you reap your harvest in your field, and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, do not go back to get it. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, so that Yahweh your Elohim might bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, do not examine the branch behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, do not glean behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore I am commanding you to do this word.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Sarah Beth. Okay. Shannon? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Shannon's going to take us into chapter 25. Let's turn the page here. And go ahead and read the first 10 verses.
When there is a dispute between men, then they shall come unto judgment, and they shall be judged, and the righteous declared righteous, and the wrongdoer declared wrong. And it shall be, if the wrongdoer is to be struck, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and be struck in his presence with the number of blows according to his wrong. 40 strikes he gives him, but no more, lest he strike him with many more blows than these, and your brother be degraded before your eyes. Do not muzzle an ox while it is threshing. When brothers dwell together, and one of them has died and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not become strangers outside. Her husband's brother does go into her, and shall take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it shall be that the firstborn son which she bears does rise up for the name of his dead brother, so that his name is not blotted out of Israel. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate to the elders and say, My husband's brother refuses to raise up a name to his brother in Israel, and he does not agree to perform the duty of my husband's brother. The elders of his city shall then call him and speak to him, and he shall stand and say, I have no desire to take her. Then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, and remove a sandal from his foot, and shall spit in his face, and answer and say, Thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And in Israel his name shall be called the house of him who had his sandal removed.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Shannon. Last up, Christina, come and close us out. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Christina, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Christina's going to take us from verse 11 to the end of the chapter.
When men fight with one another, and a man and his brother and the wife of one shall draw near to rescue her husband from the hand of the one striking him, and shall put her hand out and take hold of him by the genitals, then you shall cut off her hand. Your eyes does not pardon. You shall not have in your bag differing weights, a heavy and a light. You shall not have in your house differing measures, a large and a small. You shall have a perfect and right weight, a perfect and right measure, so that they prolong your days on this soil which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. For all who do these and all who do unrighteously are an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Mitzrayim, how he met you on the way and attacked your back, all the feeble ones in your rear, when you were tired and weary, and he did not fear Elohim. Therefore it shall be, when Yahweh your Elohim has given you rest from your enemies all around, in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance, that you blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens. Do not forget.
Amen. Amen. That's sounding great through the sound system there. Amen. Okay, thank you to all the readers. I appreciate that very much. Let me just go ahead and reset this here a little bit, and then we'll get the closing blessing. Okay, the traditional closing blessing after reading the Torah portion. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Okay, good. Now, so before we get started on the discussion, let me just go through the announcements again real quickly. Again, if you're aware, we started a new challenge. And the challenge is to read Psalm 119. There are 22 8-verse stanzas. Now, not every Bible is broken up that way, but there's 176 verses. They are broken up into the 22 letters of the Aleph Bet. Okay? So today we are finishing with what? Aleph Bet Gimel. So we did Gimel today, Dalet tomorrow. And so when you wake up in the morning, we will be reading the fourth of the stanzas. Okay? We started on Sunday. So it shouldn't be too hard for you to catch up if you're behind. We're talking about by tomorrow you should only be 32 verses in, okay? All right, so we'll get that going. Now that's to take you all the way to the day before trumpets, the day before Rosh Hashanah. All right. We have men's and ladies' meetings after services this week, so let's remember that. That's coming up again this week. Also, we have leadership meetings on Sunday, so it's going to be meetings and meetings all weekend for me. For all of you that are here tonight, that this is your first time at a Torah study online especially, we do this every week. okay, except for when we're away at an event like Sukkot, so we won't be doing it on that Tuesday, or the Tuesday when we first get back, because we're going to be getting back on Tuesday. So we're going to be a little wiped out to be trying to get a Torah study done. But so that we don't fall too far behind, we are going to try to squeeze one in on the day after Rosh Hashanah, and the night before Yom Kippur. We'll do something special to try to work that out, because that will also be a Tuesday. Okay. So we have Rosh Hashanah coming up on September 30th. We have Yom Kippur, October 9th, and then Sukkot. We'll be meeting at the feast site on, everybody should be getting there by the 13th, and leaving on the 22nd, with the 2 holy days that you need off from work being the 14th and the 21st. Okay, the first day of Sukkot, and Shemini Atzeret, the festival of the 8th day. Okay? All right, so that takes care of that. All right, so, Ki Teitzei, when you go out. A lot of stuff going on in here. And inevitably, whenever we end up talking about something happening to the male genitals, some woman always gets to read that section. Although only one of the 2 sections got read by a woman this week, so that was different for a change. It just always times out that way. And so it's always kind of a little awkward when we have to do that. But look, this section is important for you to see that Yahweh wants to cover everything, okay? I mean, he wants to deal with even like when you have to go use the facility, so to speak, but they didn't have facilities. You had to go outside the camp to even bring a shovel to make sure you could, bury what you had to do. I mean, there's lots of stuff covered here. I mean, and sometimes he's covering a theme for about 8 or 9 verses. Sometimes you hit something, then the next thing, and they're not as easily connected to each other. But he's really making sure that we have most of the daily activities, if we lived in that day especially, sort of covered in these instructions. Okay, so the way this works is we're going to go ahead and discuss the portion. Steve's going to go around with the mic if anybody wants to raise their hand. Let's start with the live streamers. We always go to them last, and then everything that they may want to ask has already been covered. This way, maybe whatever they ask will cover it for you guys, and if you guys want to add more things, you can do that. So we're going to try this a little backwards and different, which actually might be frontwards in the way we should be doing it. And so just for those on live stream, we're going to try to go somewhat chronologically. Let's try to start in chapter 21 with mostly what we're covering. It's not a strict rule, but we'll try to fit this through chronologically. I'm going to preemptively strike. Okay, we are not going to cover chapter 24, the verses about divorce and marriage. There's a teaching for that. That teaching is quite comprehensive and addresses it thoroughly. I don't think we have time to start pulling those things together. So the first 4 verses of chapter 24, I know some of you are ready to ask a lot of questions about it. Not going to happen, okay? Okay? Survey says, listen to the teaching, okay. Okay, it's called Divorce, Remarriage, and Putting Away, right? And I promise you we covered Deuteronomy 24 in that teaching, okay? So just so that we have that covered, so I preemptively wanted to just take that out of the mix. We're not covering that today. All right, now you can go ask probably nothing. Everybody wanted to talk about the marriage thing. Okay, kinda. All right, well, that was easy. All right, anybody else have a question? I'm sorry, I mean, I know you guys have questions. Now, this is where we're gonna see how submissive you are, or how genuinely you want either to argue or do you really want the information. If you want the information, you'll make the effort to find the teaching, which probably somebody could post and link in the chat there if we need to. Okay, the teaching's called Divorce, Remarriage, and Putting Away. It's an MTOI teaching. You can find it on our YouTube channel. I mean, obviously you found our YouTube channel, you found this. Okay? So it covers this topic fairly thoroughly. If you, after watching the video, still have questions, you're welcome to contact us. All right? But I promise you we covered the Deuteronomy sections, the Matthew sections, all the sections that you could want covered about this in that teaching. All right, now let's see what else you got. I stalled so that you can get other questions.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay, chapter 21. Why does the prisoner have to shave the head and cut the nails and mourn her parents? Can you give more understanding to that?
Okay, what was the last part about the parents?
And then mourn her parents.
Okay, so what you're talking about here is when you go out to fight against your enemies. So when we're talking about that, the parents are probably dead. And this is a woman that has been captured. Okay, or they've been taken out and the parents may have fled the area, whatever. This is a person who's now separated from her parents in some way. So mourning that separation. But as far as the nails and the hair thing, look, the whole point of this section is about verse 11, where it talks about taking her for your wife. So she's not being looked at in this section. It's not talking about the spoils of war. This is about you found a woman desirable and you wanted her to be wife. And to have a wife, there's a lot of responsibilities, there's a lot of treatment that a wife deserves. And she should be treated as a wife. But to prove that you really want her as a wife, we're first going to take away the physical trappings that might have, especially in that society, made her look beautiful, which is the long hair and the pretty nails. So we're going to clip the nails off, we're going to shave her head, and if you still want her, because it's not just going to grow back overnight, okay? So we're going to test you to see where your heart really is. Okay, because that's what this is about. It says, you see among the captives a woman fair of form, and you delight in her to take her as your wife. Well, let's see if that's true. That's what the rest of it's about. Let's see if you really want to do that. All right? Okay. Otherwise, what you have is the raping and pillaging of the ages that we see going all the way from back to at this point in history with Moses all the way up to even present day. Armies and peoples go in, they fight against their enemies, and they just grab whatever they think looks good, do whatever they want to it, and then leave it, discard it. This is about that which you would then desire to have as a wife. You want her as a wife. There's a lot of actually those kind of rights being dealt with here. There's the right of the first wife versus the second wife. There's the right of the firstborns. There's things to protect those that may be less desired. So if she's not so desirable, then don't do all of this to her. Don't take her captive and hold on to her just because you thought she was cute and then just to discard her. She's going to get all the rights of a wife. Okay, next question. That was a good one. That's on my list, so we covered one. There you go. All right, let me just cover another one because I mentioned it, which is the two wives. In case nobody asked it, in verse, 15, it says that when a man has two wives. Okay, so I want us to notice a few things very importantly. And actually, this is going to come up in this Torah portion maybe more than once. The idea that there are positive commands and there are negative commands. Positive commands, the do's, negative commands, the don'ts. Okay? So we don't have a negative command here. There's no commandment not to have more than one wife. What you find also nowhere is a commandment to have more than one wife. What you have is culturally and in those times, it was common enough, especially because we're now talking about if you're go to war, you may have already had a wife, and then you find somebody and now you have a second wife. But now what if your first wife is now in your eyes less desirable? And then we have rules that come after that talking about how you treat them. Okay, because after all, you may want to trade in the old for a new. Bad idea. Okay? Bad idea. Not because I tried it and from experience. I'm just telling you from talking to enough people, from counseling enough people and watching and observing, it's not a good idea. And I don't understand the men out there to think a woman that is 20 or so years younger than them is a great idea because, after all, you don't have anything in common. I mean, my wife and I are similar in age, and so therefore we have similar experiences, and we remember things from the time that we grew up and the same kind of stuff, songs and shows and movies and TV and whatever, and things that we experienced, stuff that went on in the world, and we all experienced those things very similarly. Okay, if she was a lot younger than me, we wouldn't have that. So I don't understand the fact that, yes, you find them attractive, but, at some point you're going to have a conversation. And what are you going to talk about? If you don't, because you're going to have a huge age gap, culture gap in terms of relating to things. Okay? It's just going to be a totally different way of seeing things. So this is more of an instruction to say, look, this may happen. It's not saying it should happen. Because there are some teachers out there really pushing this whole multiple wife thing. Okay, I don't see a whole lot of examples in Scripture where it goes well. By the way, let this play out for birthdays too. We don't see any good examples of birthdays, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong to do one. Well, here we're told that you could have more than one wife. It just doesn't generally, when you see Scripture talk about it, it doesn't work out so well. How did it work for Sarah and Abraham? No, it didn't work well with that, right? How did it work with Jacob? No, it didn't work so good. Okay, so we don't see a lot of examples where these things work very well. So I don't know why it becomes such an important issue, except for guys that are wanting to justify their desire for more than one. Now if we're going to use scriptural example, in the only few examples we see, whose idea is it to get the second wife? The man's? No. It was Sarah's idea. It was Rachel's idea. It was Leah's idea. It was not Jacob's idea. It was not Abraham's idea. Okay? And Isaac's the only smart one. He said, I'm good right where I am. Okay? All right? And so that's the thing. Okay, and again, I'm not picking on the ladies. Ladies, you wouldn't want two husbands, okay? I mean, look, a relationship, I counsel a lot of marriages. I don't know why anybody wants to bring another person into it. It's hard enough to deal with the two of you. Why would you think that adding a third person is going to make it better? And how do I know? Because we bring children in. That adds a third, a fourth. It's not the same as bringing another wife in, but it's adding more people, more beings. It only makes it that much harder, more complex, more issues. Okay? I don't know why anybody would want more than one wife. Not because a wife is such a bad thing, but because it takes all of what I have to love, cherish, and deal with one in a way that she should be taken care of according to all of this. I don't know how I would take care of two. Okay, so just to make it anyway. But here it does tell you that it can happen. Of course, that was the laws of the land at that time. You happen to live in this country. If you live in the U.S., it's illegal. All right? And so, sister-wife TV shows, were notwithstanding. Apparently, not all laws apply everywhere in this country. All right? But just keep that in mind, because I know that can come up, this whole two-wife thing. All right? Because it says here, when a man has two wives, so it could happen. It could happen. But let's just be careful that we understand the wife number one, in this case we have it as a first wife because after all you think that he's bringing in one that he might cherish a little more. She's not to be diminished in her place, like Leah was not to be diminished at all for Rachel. Okay? She was to still have an honored position. And so the children, same thing, the firstborn is the firstborn, and not to have a diminished position. Okay. Now, of course, the diminishing a position happens for other reasons. So it's not to say that you would diminish the position because of your love for the wife, because after all, Joseph gets skipped over all those other brothers to get to Joseph. But you know what? We know about most of those brothers, and they messed up. Not all of them, but we got definitely the top ones we know about, the oldest ones. Okay, and so they get skipped for reasons, not because of their mother. They earned their own reasons to get skipped. All right? Okay, so just again, we have to read into this, that this is also to teach that the subtleties are not so clear in the specifics. It says that you're to give the other one, the firstborn, his true, unless the firstborn somehow himself, disqualified himself. Esau disqualifies himself. Okay? It doesn't have anything to do with there being multiple wives there or anything else. I'm just saying Esau disqualifies himself. So they can disqualify themselves. He's saying you cannot disqualify them just because you prefer the other mother, the mom of the other child. That's not a criteria that counts. Are we clear on that? So sometimes it's what it says, sometimes it's really understanding what it's saying in its more big, full picture. Because we're going to get other things that deal with that in this Torah portion. Okay, what else you got?
Okay, Pauline, Deuteronomy 21:10-24. Women captured from faraway cities were not a threat like those of the nations in the land because they were permitted. 20:14-15, it is likely these enemies were not as in 7:10.
Okay, so we're not talking about things like with the Midianite women, or we're talking about the things that happened with Balaam, where the women came in and they were interacting with the Israelites to lead them away. These are women that were captured out of war. It's a totally different situation, all right? These women didn't have any place to lead these men away to, all right? They were property that was going to become wife, because the whole point of this section is don't look at them like property. Because you might, they're the spoils of war, you might think. He says, no. If you want them, then, and by the way, if you notice this, it says here that if you are going to go into her, you have to go into her as husband. So let that be a thing to all men. Men, if you have any woman that you want to go into, so to speak, you have to marry them. Now, in the culture back here, you could have more than one wife, but that had to be worked out. And by the way, my understanding from looking at the examples is it has to be her idea. So if your wife has no interest, it's not happening. So for all the ladies out there, you should have no fear of that, because the man should not be having a thought that is not in your head. Okay? Because everywhere I see it, it's the woman's idea. So if the woman doesn't want it, it ain't happening. All right, now, go ahead, next question. While you're getting that, I'm getting
21, 18 through 21, how do we manage this situation today?
21. Okay, well, we can get this. Did you want to say something about the... We can bring a mic over to you. Hold on. Steve's going to come over with the mic. That's okay. We can stay on the same subject for a second. Well, you need the mic because people have to hear your question, not just me. Well, I could repeat it, I suppose, but go ahead.
I was just wondering, you were saying that they're taking these women as wives. So would it have been illegal in Israel for men going through to rape those women? Would they have been held accountable?
Yeah, I would say yes, because after all, he says, when you find one that is, I turned the page. Give me a second. All right. When you see one that you delight in, okay, it says here, then you shall bring her to your house, etc. No, okay. It says, and you shall do all these other things, and then, because your intention is to have a wife, then you can go into her. You can't go into, which, I was talking about having the sex or the whatever you're talking about. Those things have to be had in the context of marriage. Okay?
So would Torah have mandated that they would be treated as if they had done it to their own sister in Israel?
I can't say from this section that the law expresses all that. There probably is another place that might deal with that. I'm not thinking about it off the top of my head. But this just deals with if you desire one, then there has to be the desire for wife, not the desire for sex.
Got it.
Okay?
I had one other question when you were talking about the first and second wife. Was it different because Sarah was his first wife, but the firstborn was Ishmael from the slave? So was there...
Well, again, that had to do with the way Yahweh promised. Yahweh promised that the heir was going to come from Sarah. Okay, now remember, Sarah jumped in and involved herself in something that she didn't need to be involving herself in. Okay, so that wasn't Abraham. Again, remember, this is about if the man makes a decision and the man decides he's going to take this woman, he can't do that at the cost to the first one. Okay? And that's the main thing, is to maintain the integrity of the honoring of the wife and not dishonoring. So again, it's an honor-shame type of thing. It would be very shameful for him to take a second wife and then basically treat the first wife like she's, old news. So it's not about just firstborn, literally firstborn. It's about firstborn under these circumstances. Okay? Now remember, the circumstance with Sarah, Sarah forced an issue instead of being patient. Okay? Now Abba said, I'll allow this and I'll use it for other purposes. So he said, Abraham, do what your wife says. Okay? Because the end from the beginning and all that kind of stuff is Abba. He knows what he's doing. Okay? So he said, well, go ahead and do what she says. But it was not the original plan. Okay? But that's also part of Abba allowing us to see that when we take things in our own hands, it goes so well, doesn't it? It goes oh so well when we do things our way. Okay? We're still paying a price for that mistake. Okay? Now, all right, next question.
Okay, next question. Andy, question 2122. Wayward son, can you expand?
Oh, that one, yeah, we were talking about, okay, we're getting to that section. The wayward son, 18 to 20, is that what we were up to?
2122?
Well, 2122 is the man committed sin worthy of death and be put on a tree. But the question you started to ask before we switched over to Kathy was about 18 to 21.
Got it. I forgot about that. Okay, 21, 10 through 24. Pauline's question, I'm assuming.
We're talking about the one.
I forgot where we were at.
We were at the one where we talked about 18 when it's basically the rebellious son. 21:18, you see that there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I remember you asking. Yes? No? No, 21:21 starts talking about the man hung on a tree. Okay. No, I'm sorry. That's okay. 21:21 is taking him out and stoning him. Okay. Okay. So let's deal with this 18 to 21 thing. The rebellious son. Okay. So we're talking about a son who's basically failed at adulting. This is the son still living in your basement. Well, see, this is the cure. We take him out and we stone him. Problem is, he's already in your basement stoned. That's the problem. Okay? Oh. All sad but true on too many cases. Okay? All right? Okay. So, all of a sudden, the Bob Dylan song, Everybody Must Get Stoned, came into my head. Okay, never mind. Okay? I did really just say that. I know the song. Okay? I'm not going to sing it, though. Okay, here we go. So, look, the Jewish sages say this was never implemented. In other words, they never took a child out to the gates and stoned them to death. All right? What this was to make a point. Just like the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. They weren't really taking someone's eye out and tooth out and that kind of thing. It was a metaphor for saying, look, this whole rebellious thing needs to be dealt with in a strong way. And so this was to put a certain fear into the children. Okay? Now notice, though, that they would take them out to the elders, and it doesn't say it exactly here, but it's implied that the elders would make the decision. So it wasn't just the parent that could just accuse their kid of anything. He says, and they will take them to the elders of the city and say, this son of ours he's wayward and rebellious, he's not listening to our voice, and he's a glutton and a drunkard, and Torah says, I need witnesses, I need to have evidence, we need to have a judgment on this and a hearing, etc. So, just so you know, that would have been done. Now, what does get kind of brought up on a regular enough basis is when some of your brilliant friends know that you're now keeping Torah, they'll say, oh, what, are you going to go start stoning people? And my first answer always is, yeah, that's a great idea. We should start with you. Okay, so I said, of course not. Why are we not stoning people? Because it actually would break Torah. Because to stone someone requires the law's parameters. In other words, jurisdiction, where the law applies. It requires a comprehensive people, government, and nation to implement the laws. It requires judges. It requires witnesses and a court. So you could not, in this time period, nor today, just go out and stone anybody. So when they say, oh, so you're going to keep the law now, what, are you going to start stoning people? Of course not. Oh, well, then you're not doing what it says. Yes, we are. It would be against Torah to just stone anybody. As a matter of fact, that was part of the issue in John when they wanted to stone the woman caught in adultery. Because after all, they were breaking all of the legal processes, bringing her to him, bringing her without the man, as far as the witnesses were concerned. Where were the 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses? The whole thing was a complete disaster legally, legitimately. Okay? And so if you want to look at that, I do have a teaching that's covered. I think it's on the teaching, What Did Yeshua Do? And I go into it fairly detailed. Okay? I think it's also in focus somewhere possibly. Okay? Now that being said, just let's understand that this section here is important, but we're not just going to say he's not listening to our voice, so stone him, he's a glutton. Well, who knows what he is? I've heard parents accuse their kids of all kinds of stuff, turning out the kid wasn't so bad. Parent was just all mad at them. Okay? Okay, the parent was having a bad relationship with them, the parent was all bent out of shape, and the kid probably wasn't as bad, probably halfway between the parent being all overly reacting, and the kid was probably not the greatest kid, but still the exaggeration through the emotional filter turned it into a disaster. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. All right, you wanted to say something about this? Okay, we need a second mic. That's okay, Steve, come on up and give Sarah Beth the mic. We're just doing this so Marty has to move around. Give him some exercise. There you go.
Would it be fair to say the ending of that verse is so that all Yisrael fears? Now, it kind of implies that the children remember to honor, but it also, would it be fair to take that as so the parents fear that this could be the ending of their child and take the corrective actions?
It could, but also it could be, let's take it a step further, because you sort of kind of triggered that thought process that are they not the children of Israel? And should they not also then fear not listening to their heavenly Father? And weren't they acting like gluttons and drunkards from time to time? And so, yeah, we could take that even a step further. Okay? Because that's a reason for that commandment number 5. Some of you are thinking, okay, I know the commandments, there's 10 of them, which one? Okay, honoring mother and father. There's a reason for that commandment. All right. Rebbitzin?
Would this be like today's capital punishment with the electric chair? Kind of like a last resort?
It's supposed to be a deterrent, and it could be a last resort. I'm just saying is that it would have taken an extreme. We don't actually have any Torah instruction to have an idea of what level of extreme behavior would warrant this. Okay? But it is talking about, okay, here we go. It's talking about authority, respect for authority, submission, and structure, because the key is that it says he is not listening to our voice. And what's the covenant? To listen to the Creator's voice. And so really, this is a warning to understand structural authority and respect and honor for that authority and submission to it. The funny part is, you as a parent are going to be all bent out of shape because your kid isn't listening, yet you don't think two things about the fact that you're not listening. That might be a good teach. Oh, we do have one called Are You Listening? Okay? I love that we've been doing this for enough years that almost everything is already out there on, so what else am I going to teach now? It's all out there. Okay? But are you listening? All right? So that's a good point. So yes, I think it would work in all those ways. Okay, Manny.
Okay, Andy, 2122, Wayward Son. Can you expand on the context, please, how we really all deserve the stunning?
What verse?
2122.
When a man has committed a sin worthy, that doesn't say wayward son here anywhere. This is now when a man has committed a sin worthy of death, then he shall be put to death and you shall hang him on a tree.
She might be confused on that. Maybe 2220? 2120.
Unless it's 21:21 when they're talking about taking him out and stoning him. So that would be more the wayward son in 21:20 and 20. Yeah, so that we already covered that. Okay, next question.
All right. Knuckles wants to know, how did the sentries for a city handle Shabbat? Were they allowed to stand their post during Shabbat? He's needed that question answered for a year.
Okay, and so I apologize, but you'll have to wait another year. No, I'll answer your question. It was too tempting to do that. All right, so this is a question that comes up indirectly all the time when people talk about keeping Shabbat, and when they work in the medical field or the police department or the fire department, or you're in the the military and your watchman's on the wall and that kind of thing. How does that work with Shabbat? And the answer is that those, just like the priests worked on Shabbat, the military still were on the wall, the watchmen were on the wall. Emergency services were always functional on Shabbat. Now, I can't say from historical records how they handled the compensation for doing that, but I can tell you that what my recommendation has always been, and you can consider this a Deuteronomy 17 thing if you want or not, is that if you are in emergency services, by the way, working at, the fast food place. Now, I know some people think working at Starbucks is emergency services because after all, you have to have your coffee, but no, okay? Emergency services is if you're not there and something goes wrong, somebody might die. We'll call that the true ox in the ditch. Because I literally had someone say to me, well, I woke up in the morning and realized I didn't have any milk for breakfast, so I had to go to the store, so that, hey, that's like an ox in a ditch. No, if you didn't have breakfast, you wouldn't have died. Okay, or if you had something, even if you had nothing, we fast on Yom Kippur. Some of us who are into health, we fast several times a year. It's not going to kill you. So nobody was going to die because you didn't have milk. So the challenge is, is it an emergency service? So if you work in the ER at the hospital, if you're maintaining care for people that need to be watched 24/7 because they're in terrible health and elderly and those kind of people that are in that kind of level of care, yes, somebody needs to be there watching them on Shabbat because something could happen and somebody could die. All right? Fire department services, EMT services, police department services. Now, because of the way our society is, the pay gets paid based on when you work. And so you can't really tell the boss not to pay you because there's all kinds of legal issues with not getting paid if you worked. So what I've always recommended is that, first of all, don't be in emergency services unless you're called to emergency. In other words, don't just do it because it pays well. Because I believe that if it pays well, I mean, if your heart's in it, that you would do it for free. Which means that I would take your pay for Shabbat if you end up working on a Shabbat and putting that in the box. I would make an offering out of it so that you're doing what you're doing because you care about people being alive, not because you're making money. Then you're not doing lucrative work. You're just working in emergency. So you're available, actually. So you're not working, you're available for an emergency. Yes, the watchmen were on the walls. Okay, the guards and sentries were on the walls. And my children, for example, both of them at some point when they were very little, ended up in the emergency on a Friday night. Different Friday nights. I had to go twice. And I was glad somebody was working because they were emergencies. Like my daughter fell and gashed her eye right above the eyebrow and she fell in the house and hit her head on something. And, that was an emergency. She was bleeding and needed stitches and the whole thing. I am so glad somebody was there. Okay? We have had people who do this on a regular basis and have found that they have shalom simply doing the math and taking the amount they made on Saturday and just not keeping it in their own pocket. And some of you say, oh, but that'd be a lot of money out of my budget. I told you, don't do this for money. Okay? Don't do this for money. See, the priests have it differently. I'm working 24/7, 7 days a week. There's no telling what hours I'm really getting paid for, so to speak. Okay? I'm not getting paid for the Sabbath hours. But I don't get paid by the hour. If you work in most of those jobs, you get paid by the hour. Okay? And so that's where you kind of get that sticky sort of place. But let's not try to twist what's an emergency service. If you're not sure if your job is an emergency service, you can call for counsel. But I use the criteria. If someone's not doing the job you do and somebody would die, I don't mean like some weird, random odds against it. I mean like legitimately, somebody needs to be there because people do run into that kind of emergency and somebody might die. Okay, hopefully that answered that question. Great question. Okay.
Actually, Knuckles said thank you, and it's haunted him for a decade. Many hours of prayer spent on that question.
Okay, and so I'm assuming that maybe there's a chance that you work in one of those services, so I would handle it that way. If you work in those services, we are all glad you're a watchman on the wall or whatever you're doing, but I would simply take that amount and not keep it in my pocket. Okay, if you belong to this ministry, send it here. If you belong to another kind, whatever, I would not keep it in my pocket. Okay? Next.
All right, Chino Man had a question, a comment, 22:3. No finders keepers in Torah.
Although there's a lot of losers and weepers going on in some of these portions. I'm sorry, I'm in a good mood today. Okay. All right.
All right, Cynthia, Devarim 22:5, explain please. And also somebody else had that same verse. Is this verse used to discourage women from wearing pants? Can you explain?
Okay, I was hoping we would get to this because now we're going to open up all the floodgates. Yay! Okay, look. And we've had issues with this here locally. There's a lot of issues with it not locally. It's a combination of verse 5 and verse 12. Okay? 119 just put out a video on should women wear tzitzit. Other people have done the same thing. We've had the issue here in the congregation. I actually was excited to see that when I was watching one of those videos to see what they said, my teaching on it popped up on the right, my in focus. Okay? So That was pretty cool. So I was glad to see my in focus there. Okay, look, here's the thing. There's a lot of debate that will go on because verse 12 talks about making tassels in the corners of your garment, and that's talking about the seat. That's talking about from Numbers 15, but here it's being repeated in Deuteronomy 22. It's the only two places it's really talked about. And then, of course, we have in Matthew where the woman with the issue of blood reaches up to grab Yeshua's seat, okay? But the thing is this. In all of the videos I watched that the people covered, they never addressed, because it's in the same chapter, only a few verses apart, the relevance of verse 5. Okay, now remember, you guys have been with me for a while, know that I preach, teach, and bring out all the time the need for context. In other words, where are all the pieces of the puzzle? Are we seeing the full picture? So the question really has to do with, what in the world is verse 5 talking about? That has to be resolved before anything else. Just like when we looked at the book of Hebrews over the last couple of weeks, we had to understand, why was it written? Well, we have here in verse 5, a woman does not wear that which pertains to a man, nor does a man put on a woman's garment, for whoever does this is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. Now, then we're talking about more things to do with clothing. In verse 11, do not put on a garment of different kinds of wool and linen together. And then it says, make tassels on the four corners of your garment, of which you cover yourself. Then it says, when any man takes a wife. By the way, if you notice the theme in here, and if your brother does it, who's this being really written to? Do you notice there's a theme? Now, I know there are people that talk about Numbers chapter 15 and other places it says Bnei Yisrael, and that means children of Israel. I say it could also mean sons of Israel. But yes, it says Bnei Yisrael when it says not to eat pork too. Okay? But we're talking about two totally different things. Let's kind of unravel this a little bit. When it tells you individually that you can't put pork in your body, that's for everybody, that's obvious. The seat thing is not just for one person. If I wear them, it's for all of you looking at me. It's for my wife and my children looking at me. It's a reminder, by the way, of vertical alignment. So there's more aspects to it. But what about this verse 5? First of all, let me answer the person's question. No, it has nothing to do with pants. I can adamantly and very confidently say that. You know why? Because nobody wore pants back then. Okay? They wore robes, they girded themselves up or whatever, but they were not wearing pants. Okay? So you can't say it was about pants. But notice that there's a different wording here. It says, that which pertains to a man, and then it says not to put on a woman's garment. Two different words, two different understandings there. Women are not to wear that which pertains to men. And men are not to put on a woman's garment. So there must have been garments that women did wear that was very specifically obvious that it was a woman's garment. Look, even today, my wife's wearing pants, I'm wearing pants. You would never confuse the genders looking at us, okay? I'm just saying they make women's pants, they make men's pants, and so you can still see the difference. Problem is when you have men wearing women's clothing and women wearing men's clothing. Then we get some confusion. But this was a thing now. It says, so what is it? Now, I can tell you there's not a single verse that overtly tells you what that verse is talking about. It doesn't. The sages have argued about it in the Jewish community and other people debated. The conclusion seems to be two things. One is that it's likely in their understanding to be referring to seat and tefillin. Okay, seat, tefillin would be where it says bind as a sign on your hands as frontlet between your eyes, that the men would wear tefillin, the ladies would not wear tefillin. This is their guess and their understanding, okay? That doesn't make it right. I'm just telling you. Or the possibility that it was talking about armor, like in military, but we know that at times the women fought also. Okay? So, but it's talking about that which is pertaining to a man. It's a man's thing. So we need to figure that out. Because only a few verses later it talks about the seat. And by the way, this whole section, it says, when you see your brother's ox, not your sister's ox. When you see your brother doing this, not your sister. When it says here that, let's see, what was the other verse I was talking about? Okay. Let's see. When we're talking about when a man takes his wife and shall go into her and shall hate her, all of these instructions are to the men. Now bear in mind, Torah is for the ladies too, but the book is written in a culture where the ladies weren't sitting down and reading the books, the men were. The men were expected to instruct the ladies. Paul even addresses this when he tells the ladies, hey ladies, Stop disturbing everybody in the synagogue. Be quiet, go home, and ask your husband what you missed. Okay, now that is not a section, by the way, where Paul is saying ladies should never say anything. You don't understand synagogue structure. Okay? And by the way, shame on 119 and others who have used this picture or painting out of the 15th century that depicts men and young boys gathered together in a synagogue wearing talits and tzitzit and claiming that it's women in the picture. Okay? And somebody actually altered the caption to say that it was, when that's actually not the original caption from the painting. But if you have any Jewish understanding whatsoever, you would know that in the 15th century, there is not a chance that the ladies and the men were wearing tzitzit in the same room in a synagogue worshiping. No. You go to an Orthodox synagogue today, they're still not doing it. Okay? And so, no, that picture, but see, you're looking through that picture as emancipated, fully self-sovereign 2019 women. You are not looking at it through the eyes of the culture when it was made, the painting or the instruction. And so that's what we end up with our challenge, okay? So we have to figure out, when it says here, that which pertains to a man. Now, it's not necessarily clothing, because it talks about a man not wearing a woman's garment. It didn't say the woman not wearing a man's garment. It said that which pertains to a man. So now we got to figure out what that is. Now, what does it say when you don't know what to do? We go back to Deuteronomy 17. We allow the sages, the leaders, the leadership, whoever it is, the men in charge, to make a judgment and to implement a policy. Okay? And so this is why it has been by tradition, and yes, that's something that one of those teachings said, it was a tradition for the women not to wear it. By tradition, women generally did not. And all the Jewish sites, by the way, will tell you there is no Torah instruction against the women wearing it. I have told you there is no instruction against it. It's in my In Focus where I say there is no negative commandment for the women not to wear it. It doesn't say, do not wear tzitzit. Unless this verse, and that's what they argue, is talking about that. But it doesn't say specifically, so we don't know. Okay? So I've said that I would never stop, prevent, or impede a woman from wearing tzitzit. I also would not sit here at the microphone saying you must wear them. Because I don't see a positive command for that either. That's me. You see it differently, that's up to you. If I'm your anointed, appointed, if I'm your teacher, if I'm your Deuteronomy 17 person, well, then you should be following what I say. If I'm not, do whatever you want. I mean, that goes back to structure. Amen? Yes? We're agreed? Okay. So this is an important section because it really is going. Now, by the way, it says here, do not put a garment on of different kinds, wool and linen. Okay. Where would wool and linen actually be a problem in ancient Israel? Who might have a garment problem really with wool and linen? Only one group of people, the priests. The priests were male or female? They were the men. So again, this is instruction. That's the verse previous to the tzitzit verse. A lot of you have never thought of that, have you? The linen wool verse is the only place that we're told specifically they got to wear linen is for the priests. Because it's not talking about just in general, don't mix any types of cloths. Okay? It's saying linen and wool. Now, there's other reasons probably that we could get into that get a little bit more esoteric. But here, it's the verse before the tzitzit. As far as we know, the only clothing-related issues that you find in Torah are for the priests. They had very specific clothing. They even had to change their clothes to go take out the stuff from the sacrifices. Okay, to take that out to be burned. And so the linen and the wool thing, again, is likely to be talking about the men. Okay? And by the way, how many verses can we read here? And when a man, 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 it says, and when a man. Right? Can we kind of get the hint? And when a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, and when there is any man among you who is not clean because of an omission, and when a man does not take his father's wife not to uncover his father's skirt, the man who lay with her, the man. This does not diminish the women in any way. It just puts a much bigger burden of getting it all right and setting the right example on the man. Hopefully that people can understand that. That's a very important understanding. If you read these scriptures, I don't see how you can get any other thing out of this. Okay, you have a question? Well, the only time you ever see anything mentioning of pants, she said, well, the priests had linen trousers. That's the only place pants are ever mentioned. Okay, is that they actually had linen trousers. Okay? But that wouldn't have been something that would have been being worn outside. Women wouldn't have even thought to do anything like that. Okay? So that wouldn't have been an issue here. What I'm simply saying is there's a lot of evidence to say that this is probably leaning in the direction of the men. Now, bear in mind, this is not the same thing as like when it says that the children of Israel need to keep Shabbat. Everybody needs to keep Shabbat. The husband doesn't just get to keep it and you don't. But remember, the tzitzit had a very specific thing. It was a vertical alignment reminder so that you keep the commandments, okay? And then maintain that vertical alignment correctly, which is another reason why they need to be visible. We don't tuck them in and hide them, as some may do. All right, the only exception being is if you are working in a job where you have a uniform and you cannot wear them because of either the uniform or because of safety. Some of you work with heavy equipment where if those tzitzit got caught in anything, you're not allowed to have anything hanging off your clothes because anything can get caught in a machine, that can be very dangerous. And then you tuck them in for that time period or wear them inside, and then you would pull them out and wear them outside when you get off the job. But the primary reason for them is to be visible. Okay? So hopefully that kind of stirred up that mess plenty and whatever. So, okay? So again, just to be clear, my point and my position is women, you can wear them. I won't stop you. I won't give you any grief about it. I do not, some people have accused me that I get angry about it or that I hate it or I have no emotional content to this whatsoever. Okay? I am not emotionally invested in this issue. The people that come at me are emotionally invested in this issue. And that's the problem. Okay? Which is why all of the people that are having that kind of an issue, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, this has come up a lot over the years. Some people might be visiting at Sukkot. Come to the teaching on control, controlled, and self-control. Okay? Because some of you are being controlled by your emotions. Okay? You're not in control. Your emotions have taken over. I struggle with that too. Anytime you see me lose my temper, guess what? I've been controlled by an emotion. Because I didn't really want to lose my temper. See, when you're in an emotional state that you really didn't want to be in, but you found yourself in, it's controlling you. Okay? And so we're going to talk about that a lot in the class. Okay, so that was a lot to say from the one question.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Olivier and Janet Hoffman, this question is from Andrea Hoffman. Chapter 22, verse 19. What if the man did not have the 100 pieces of silver?
Okay, if you ever fell short on money, you would end up having to basically be an indentured person for a period of time during the in-between years of the Shemitah cycle. So he would work it off. He would work it off.
Norfleet says, chapter 21, 22, and 23. Is that the law that directed that Messiah had to be taken down before sunset? Correct?
That would, well, yes and no. I mean, that's something that gets quoted, okay? Because the main point being that it's basically a shameful thing to be left up on a tree or to be seen, because that was what was meant to dishonor those that were most dishonored. Now, of course, Yeshua didn't do anything to be dishonored, but the society was trying to do that to him. So yes, it's linked, but not exactly the way it's talked about here. Because here it says, when a man has committed a sin worthy of death, you're going to put him to death and hang him on the tree. Well, he didn't do anything worthy of death, but they hung him on the tree. But then, of course, they didn't want his body to remain overnight, and you should certainly bury him, etc. But now it's saying, because him who's hanged is a curse to Elohim. That's when it's done through the Elohim justice system, not the kangaroo court that was in the temple at the time of Yeshua. Okay? But yeah, so it's sort of a yes but no. Yes, that's why they were doing the things they did. No, he really didn't qualify under this. Because people will say, well, then he must have been accursed of Elohim and all that. No. Okay, man did that to him, but yet there were elements they were still trying to do to some degree. But really the reason he got taken down wasn't because it was an accursed, but because it was going to be the holy day. I think if it wasn't, they'd have left him up there. Because remember, it was the Romans who put him up there. Okay? The people that wanted him down because of the holy day. And plus, he'd have been up there for a longer time because it would have been the holy day, then the preparation day, then the Sabbath. He'd have been up there a long time. Okay? So it's a combination. Go ahead, next question.
A connected question to that, chapter 21, verse 23. What does it mean anybody hanged is accursed of Elohim?
Okay, well, I kind of answered that. Okay, look, so the most shameful way, going culturally back, at least to Yeshua's time, probably the same thing was going all the way back to Moses' time, was to hang somebody. Even in America, when you go back to the, Old West, they would hang people. They found them guilty and they would death by hanging. Because hanging was one of the most shameful ways that they would deal with somebody, okay? And so it was meant to be a public shaming and bring shame on the family and shame on that house to do this public, hanging, okay? And so this connection here is exactly why they wanted him to be put up put on the cross, on the crucifix, or the tree, the stake. They wanted to nail him up there. It was supposed to be to shame him and his family and everything else. Okay? Now, if it's done correctly, they're accursed of Elohim. That they should be ashamed. It should be in public. Everybody should know they did something that was accursed. Okay, go ahead.
Olivier says, Rabbi, would the correct application of chapter 21, verses 18 through 21 be coming to you for counsel on how to handle matters of a severe rebellion in a child?
Yeah, we offer the child the left or right foot and tell him to get a job. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? Okay. Oh, you laugh. I actually have done counseling with some people when they've called me and said, which foot do you want? Okay. But that's only with the people that I know I can do that with. And they start laughing. I said, I got a left and a right. Which one do you want? Because some people need a little swift kick to get them moving. Okay? This is for all you adults that are struggling with adulting. Because that's part of not listening to him. We're supposed to be successful men and women adulting. Okay? Being the men and women of Yisrael, not the children only of Yisrael, but to grow into the men and women of Yisrael. And in these verses, we're talking about a child. It doesn't say how old that child is, by the way. This is their 32-year-old living in the basement, okay, who is just doing drugs or drinking and partying and playing Minecraft. I mean, I don't know what he's doing, okay? But he's not growing up, and he's not listening to his parents, and he's not taking on his responsibilities. Go ahead, next. So we also say, stone him!
Randy Baker was just making a comment. Deuteronomy 21, 22 through 23 really shows the compassion of Yahweh. Even though a man has to pay for his sin by being put to death, the body is not left hanging, which would bring shame upon the family.
True, I would agree. Okay? By the way, I like that we say chronologically, and we've managed not to even barely get out of chapter 21. A little into 22, and that's all we've got into so far.
Which brings me to my next question, because I'm now 23:1.
Okay, good.
Keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. 23:1, Olivier. Rabbi, when it says that he shall not enter into the community of Yahweh, does this mean he could not become an Israelite?
Okay, let's be really careful with these verses that talk about someone who is damaged in some way, because it talks about the lame in other verses. It talks about those with other defects. This is talking about when they're a nation in the land and there should not be these things. Okay? That's part of what's going on here. So let's just understand that we don't have any verses explaining how they may have come to this position and gotten wounded or crushed or whatever they had happened to their genitals or whatever it was. So we are not in the land. We are not in the nation as a cohesive nation. So we'll let Yahweh sort this all out when we ever get there. And by the way, I'm sure, as always, whatever happened to you prior to covenanting doesn't count. Because you weren't in covenant. You weren't called. You had no idea. So he's not going to hold against you that which you were not aware. This is not ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's what you'd be told here in this country. That's not a justification for not keeping one of the laws outside. They'll just say that you didn't know it. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. No. Ignorance of the law is an excuse if you hadn't opened your eyes to the law. Okay, he's just. It would be unjust to hold you up to a standard you didn't know was there. Okay? And in his love and mercy and compassion, you know that he loves the widows, the homeless, the orphans, etc. He would also love all the handicapped, all those with all those kind of damages and anything else. So I'm sure he has a plan for that. I'm not worried about it. Next question.
Okay, Nolan has a question about 23:1 also. What does it mean by community, and what about eunuchs like Daniel?
Okay, again, that would be played out by the authorities. They would know. The ones reading this at the time, remember, the book isn't written to you, it's for you. Okay, so since we're not the ones it was written to, we are lacking some of the context and detail that we'd have if we were living then. Okay, but in that structure, those with the jobs to do that structure would have known how to implement these laws. So I won't worry about it. You shouldn't worry about it. Don't stress. Okay? Go ahead, next question.
All right, so I have three questions on 23:2. Pete Lamb says...
Same thing. Just same answer. Okay? Whatever the question is, the same answer. Don't worry about verse 2 either. That's, again, based on criteria that did not happen in your life. Okay? So I preemptively know where the question's going. Don't worry about your parentage, your lineage, if you're legitimate, if you're not legitimate, if you're a mamzer, whatever. Don't worry about those things, okay? We are into dispersion. We've been accursed of all these things. We've had all those things on because we're not in the cohesive nation behaving according to Torah. This is for the group who's about to do what? Cross the Jordan into the land. They've been trained for 40 years. We're not that. We don't have any. Most of us have done this for less than 5 years and we just still don't have a clue. These people have been trained, been learning about it. They had Moses and the 70 elders. They had all of that going on for all their whole lives. I mean, these are the adults that were younger than 20 or not even born when they started the journey. Because all those men who were 20 and older, by the way, ladies, be happy that the men are treated differently. You didn't get killed. The men did. See how the blame and the responsibility falls in a different way? How the responsibility, be glad you... So you want to be wearing a seat? You want to be standing up like the man? Then you get the same blame. You want that? I don't think so. Okay? So just keep that in mind. But so don't worry about verse 2. Again, I'm sure there's a plan for it. Abba did not call you just to say, oh, sorry, your parents weren't legit or you were somehow illegit in your birth or whatever, so you're not in here. Okay? He's not going to do that to you. That makes no sense. He's not an irrational, illogical Elohim. Okay? So don't worry about verse 2. Next question.
Sarah has a question about Deuteronomy 23, 12 through 14. Weird question, but I have to ask since I've thought... Hold on, my screen moved here.
You guys skipped over my next verse, but that's okay. Go ahead.
I have to ask since I've thought about it before, we should refrain from praying while using the restroom?
There may be a time when you're really having a problem. You may want to do that, I guess. I don't know. No, I'm not even talking about whatever you just went to. I mean, you could be really feeling so awful. You know, there's some times that you could be bent over a bowl because you feel like you're going to die and you're about to hack up your lungs or something. I mean, you really might be praying. Okay, so there are times you might be in a bathroom and be praying. But it's not about that. What it's about is that, look, listen, I wrote it differently in my notes here. Yahweh walks in your midst, so clean up your poop. That's a quote. You can drop the mic and we'll put that on a shirt. In other words, if you're going to go ahead and have your stuff everywhere, clean it up. Yahweh is in your midst. Because some of you are doing that in your congregations and just in a metaphorical way, right? You're just doing that and vomiting and everything else all over the place. Clean it up. Yahweh's in your midst. I think that's a great metaphor. So I have that in my notes. Look, Yahweh walks in your midst. Clean up your stuff. Okay, I think that's the important part here for that, okay? But yes, I don't know why anybody, look, if you are going to just be praying in general, there would be no reason to pray in the bathroom unless you're actually in the bathroom having an urgent time. And you could be having a lot of different urgencies could happen when you're in the bathroom. And it doesn't mean when you're actually using the facilities. You could just be in there, you're splashing water on your face, you're looking for some medication, maybe because you're not feeling good. You could really be in some bad way and you're in the bathroom. Pray. Okay, you're in an urgency, pray. Okay? You know. But if you're just going to be in there for a while, read a magazine. You don't need to be praying. Get more fiber. Did you say touche? I'm not even going to touch that. Be careful. Anything you say can and will be used in the court of sarcasm right here. Okay. Did you want something? Yeah, that would be the same thing. Okay, Rebbeson said, probably don't need your Bible to be in your bathroom either. Okay? If that's the only place you can study, you've got a time management problem. Okay? Yeah, look, I was raised in a Jewish home. I was raised in a Jewish culture. Now, my parents, granted, they didn't keep everything and all that kind of stuff, but I was taught to respect the book. Okay? So it bothers me because remember, we're all controlled to a certain degree by different things, and part of it is how you were raised. So it bothers me to see one of these. It's just a book. It's just paper with writing on it. But if it's on the floor, that bothers me because I was taught you don't put the book on the floor. Okay? I was also taught that you don't put coffee cups on it, or you don't put anything on top of it. It can go on the top of a pile of other books or magazines, but it goes on top. Okay? Now, that's just a tradition, but it gives me a mindset. It gives me a thought process. Okay? So I don't have a problem taking one and putting it on top of the other. That's quite fine. Okay? But I wouldn't take this, which is the liturgy book, and put it on top. Okay? I could put it underneath. Now, that's only tradition, and I embrace the tradition, and it's not breaking a commandment. If I did this, it wouldn't break anything. But it would mess with my mindset of honoring his word above everything, which is why it goes on top. Okay? Above everything. So I would not bring it in the bathroom. Because I don't, and by the way, even the men who wear talits, okay, because if you're in a synagogue, you wear talits. If you've ever been in a synagogue, in a shul, you'll notice that at the bathroom, there's outside the door, there's a hanging hooks where people hang their talits. They go in the restroom, and then they come out and put it back on. I'm at my first Messianic, I guess it was at my first Messianic conference, 1999 probably, in Florida. And all these great wannabe Israelites who know nothing about nothing are this is in the giant hotel, 1,200 people. I had to go use the restroom, and we're talking about that anyway. And I'm going in, and this guy's in there doing their thing, wearing their talits. I'm like, look, if you're going to wear a traditional garment, at least understand the traditions, okay? I said, excuse me, that doesn't belong in here, okay? Now, if you're wearing tzitzit, that's not, it was the point of that garment, okay? The garment was designed to put you in a certain place that doesn't belong in the restroom. The tzitzit are on you, they're on you, okay? Okay, but that's a whole different thing. Understanding that it puts you in a mindset, all right? Okay, who's next?
Okay. Question 2325. How many times have we said and needed to repent for saying, I swear to God, usually in anger?
2325. 2325? When you come to your neighbor's standing grain and pluck the heads?
They probably have the wrong verse there.
Okay, I'm not seeing what you're looking for in that. 23. That which is gone from your lips you shall guard to do for your voluntary vow. Yeah, so I guess a lot of people would say something like swear to God or whatever. Well, but they're not actually making a swear. That's just an idiomatic phrase when it goes, when you're all upset, you go, I swear to God, whatever. But they're not actually making a vow. Now, they shouldn't be doing this because it's just taking the name and using it in a foolish way, okay, so to speak, or using his authority and his title in a foolish, it's not really his name, but using it in some foolish way, using it in anger just to try to make a point. But that's an idiomatic phrase. It's not so much making a vow, okay? Now, if you say something like, I swear to God, if you do that again, I'm going to kill you, now you've done something pretty stupid. Because now you're sort of making a vow, you're bringing his name into place, and if that person does it again, what are you going to do? You're going to kill them? Okay, but people are not respecting the Creator. They're not showing awe and reverence for the Creator when they use his name or his title or whatever they're going to use, referencing him in that kind of a way. All right? Okay. So let's just keep that in mind. By the way, since we already seem to have gotten a bit far from where I wanted to go, and before we run out of time here, I want to just make sure we hit on what is one of the most important verses in this whole section, which is 23:3. Okay, an Ammonite or a Moabite does not enter the assembly of Yahweh, even to a 10th generation of them does not enter the assembly. This is critical because we also have in 25:5 through 10, these are two sections that deal with our good friend Ruth and Boaz. Okay, you've got the whole taking off the sandal and, doing that whole deal, which was actually done at the end of the book of Ruth. Okay, so that talks about the levirate marriage, and it talks about the rights and of the kinsman, redeemer, etc. Those things are going on in chapter 25. But also we have in 23 the idea that, people say that Yeshua is not legitimate because it's a Moabitess in his lineage. And it says that on to the 10th generation they do. First of all, they said he does not ever enter the assembly. It says even a 10th generation. Well, it's less than 10 generations from the writing of this to Ruth. Okay? So it's not even 10 generations from this moment till we get to Ruth. And so when you say that, you say, oh, this is what the anti-missionary people say. Oh, that makes him no good. No. Because by the time she gets to Boaz, she's no longer a Moabite. Now that's important for us because all you Gentiles, guess what? When you covenant, you're no longer Gentiles. Okay? Because you did the same thing she did. Your God will be my God, your people my people, your ways my ways. In other words, you changed citizenship, just like she did. So when people say that, well, there's a Moabitess in the lineage, no, there are 0 Moabites in his lineage. There's a former Moabite. There are no Moabites in the lineage. She was Israel when Boaz took her. Okay? And so in David's lineage, there are no Moabites. Because what you were is of no effect, bears no consequence once you make your decision moving forward. Praise Yah for that. Amen? Okay? This is an important verse, very important verse. So you must know that 23:3 is very critical because that's, to me, that's the whole reason the book of Ruth exists in your canon, in your Bible, is for you to see the Moabitess become an Israelite. Okay? That is why she's there. That's why the whole story is there. Also, maybe because people are thinking, this is a really weird thing with the shoe and your sandal, and you're going to spit in his face, and you're going to do, well, and then we get to see it done. Because as we see that with Boaz and his brother, what was the relationship, I guess? Yeah, but anyway, when he goes and does that, he's doing this chapter 25. So we see that. Okay, so very, very important. I know we have other things that we might cover, but I just want to make sure that we covered that because it's actually about 2 minutes to 5, and we actually almost never finish on time. So, it's almost a few minutes to 10. Did I say 5? Oh, because you know what? Services always ends close to 5. That's why I thought 5. What day is it? It's Tuesday. All right, so let me just throw one more thing out there, and I think that it's important that we cover just 1 or 2 more things. Okay, so in chapter 24, verses 19 through 21, it says, for the poor, you don't glean the corners of your field type of thing again, or you leave the scraps in case you forgot it. Bear in mind, the poor were still expected to go get the scraps. They weren't told, go gather them and bring them to the poor. Okay, whatever your part is, the poor needs to do their part. There's a part, whatever it is. That's all it's saying, okay? But don't just sit back as the poor expecting everybody that you're entitled to just be waited on hand and foot, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it says in those verses that you are to leave that portion there for the poor, but it doesn't say necessarily that the poor are just, it says when you reap your harvest in your field and you've forgotten a sheaf, don't go back, let it be for the stranger. You see that in the story of Ruth, right? Ruth had to go and gather that what was left, from the corners of the field, etc. Okay? And so as a poor, the poor still had to do the gathering. The poor had to do something, whatever the part is, okay? So just recognize that you should be asking yourself, if I'm poor, what is my part? I should be doing something, okay? Everybody can do something. All right, whatever that is. There is a curiosity that happens when it talks about a man and his new wife, and he should not have to do anything for a year. It doesn't say that. Okay, it says that nothing should be imposed on him. That's a different type of wording. In other words, if I have a newlywed couple in the congregation, like let's say Dawid and Kelly, I would not then say to Dawid, I need to impose something on you. That doesn't mean Dawid can't volunteer to do something, and they can agree to do something. It says that you shall not impose upon the newlywed because he has responsibilities to get his relationship with his wife settled, okay, that first year. But if they are in agreement to do some things, which, you see Dawid do liturgy from time to time and things like that, that's not me imposing, that's him volunteering. See, and this is a very important thing that we see that word. Sometimes we miss the subtlety of the wording. Because somebody is coming to me, you can't ask me to do anything because it's my first year. I say, no, it doesn't say, it says, yeah, you're right, I can't ask you, but it doesn't mean you can't decide to do something, okay? You can still volunteer. I can't impose it on you. I can ask, I can't impose. Hey, would you consider doing this? We could use your help. Yes or no, that's your choice. I can't impose. You see the subtlety, the difference, but it's not really, it's a big difference, even though it might be subtle in the wording, okay? And I think that'll have to cover it for now. And all the things that I see here really quickly, I think I covered everything pretty much, okay? So, I'm sure there's still more questions. We always have more questions. We could do this for hours and hours. If you really want to go through, here's my little promotional, sponsored by Sukkot, okay? So if you really want to go through Deuteronomy in a more thorough way, come to Sukkot. We're going to do this for like 3 hours every morning, okay? From breakfast to lunch every day, just about, we're going to be doing this. So if you didn't think this was enough, because we didn't have enough time, come to Sukkot. And we'll be doing this with 300 of your closest friends. Okay? Or people that will eventually become your closest friends, hopefully. So that would be really great. All right. Well, I hope that was a blessing, everyone. All right. I need one of the guys to go ahead and raise their hand to close us in prayer. Okay. Give it to Michael. He's right there. Okay, Michael, go ahead and close us in prayer. If you want to get Michael on camera, I can have him come up here. That's okay. Just go ahead and pray.
Father, we come before you humbled, grateful for the understanding that you've given us today. And Father, I would ask that you continue to bless us in this manner, and you would watch over us as we head off to our homes and bring us back safely on Shabbat. In Yeshua, our Messiah's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Actually, you know what? I found one more verse just because I think it's important. What have I been telling you guys? That you are primarily responsible. 24:16 says, fathers are not put to death for their children, children are not put to death for their fathers. Each one is to die for his own stuff, his own sin. So then what does that mean? You are responsible for you. Okay? You are primarily responsible for you. So that's an important thing that we understand. You are responsible. You stop blaming your past, stop blaming your friends and family members currently. You need to own that you are responsible for you. Amen? Amen. Anybody who wants to say goodbye, come on up here. We're going to wave before the rain makes too much noise. It seems like it's already getting going out there. Oh, yeah. All right, we're going to do a little quick wave goodbye over here. All right, here they come. All right, here we go. Getting people come around.
That's right. That's what we're supposed to be, brother.
There we go. You can stand up. You're not in the way. There you go. All right, here we go. Is this fitting everybody in? Okay. So on 3, we're going to say, ready? Laila Tov, which is good night. Shavua Tov, and then we'll tell them we love them. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.